I want to welcome everyone to our webinar this afternoon, and you are in for a treat. So we are going to be beginning in just a couple of minutes here. Just want to let you know a few housekeeping notes. The webinar has been pre-approved for one SHRM PDC and one HRCI business credit. We plan to get your credits to you by Tuesday. And this afternoon's speaker you are going to enjoy, Matt Cross. He is the product manager for Trainery Learning Solutions, and he brings more than 15 years of experience helping organizations improve workforce learning and employee development. Having worked on both the client and technology sides of the industry, Matt understands the real-world challenges organizations face when implementing learning solutions. The experience makes him a strong client advocate, helping ensure Trainery solves the right challenges in employee learning at scale. He works closely with organizations across industries to simplify learning management, strengthen learner engagement, and connect workforce development measurable business results, which is what we're all looking for. In case you haven't met Matt yet, please check out my LinkedIn video with Matt from SHRM 26 in Orlando, and you'll feel like you know him and you've known him for a while. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt now, and I hope you enjoyed today's presentation, Why a Centralized Learning Ecosystem Matters for Business Success. Matt, take it away.
Thank you, Cynthia, and good afternoon to everyone. Again, appreciate all of you for joining today and appreciate your time. I know the calendars are full, especially right before a holiday weekend, so I don't take your time lightly. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. As we can see, I've got an agenda slide up, and for most of our time, we're going to be talking about a problem that I would wager that most everyone on this call is living with right now, even if you've never put a name to it. We'll look at what it costs, why it happens, and what good looks like. Near the end of the presentation, I'm going to pop onto our Trainery platform to show you what good looks like. Not necessarily to sell you, though if I do, that would be great. But honestly, it's the most descriptive and clearest way that I know how to make some of the ideas we're going to talk about concrete. And if you take nothing else away out of today, I want you to leave at least with a framework that you can use on Monday or the following Monday if you're out next week, no matter what software you run. So let's go ahead and get into it. To reiterate some of what Cynthia said, just a quick background on me, and I need to update that. That was a great introduction. Now it's pushing 20 years in this space of e-learning and human capital management. And most of that time in this vertical as I've been on the same side of the table as you guys. I was a trainer before, so I'm used to chasing people down for their certifications or completions and pulling all the reports. Some of those headaches we're going to talk about some today, but I spent a lot of that time trying to make learning technologies work. I've written for a few of the publications that you have read, including the one Cynthia mentioned with the HR Professional magazine. And on that note, again, thank you, Cynthia, and appreciate you and the partnership with HR Professional magazine, and greatly appreciate you helping co-host today. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So we're going to start today with how learning quietly became a business problem, not just an HR problem. We're going to put real numbers on what that fragmentation costs. Then we're going to shift to what centralized means, what it looks like, because that word's widely misunderstood today. We're going to talk about how centralized plays out across every kind of learning, right through to AI, the big buzzword of the last couple of years. We're going to have a little evaluation framework in one of the slides for you and your team that you can look at. Again, we'll take a short look at our platform so you can see what it looks like, what centralized looks like to us. And then we'll have a little bit of room at the end for some Q&As. So to get started, let's start with you. You should have a poll question up. And if not, I believe Sanchita's going to get that running. There we go. You should see the poll. So be honest. The question's simple. How many different systems does your learning actually live in today? Uh, Obviously, your LMS, so sure, but also if there's any tools for instructor-led training, any webinar platforms, if you do virtual instructor-led training, certifications, think of all of those things and where they all live. Um, Even if the answer for some of those things is inside a spreadsheet, but we'll give you a minute or two to go ahead and answer there. I'm seeing some of the answers rolling in. That's um, pretty much as expected. In my experience, a lot of people often will check 4 or 5 things, so don't feel bad if you are. 3, you're probably doing pretty good. And we'll give about another 30 seconds there. All right, still seeing a couple more answers come in. So about 15 seconds and we'll close the poll. All right, we'll go ahead and end the poll. So thank you guys for participating. Hopefully that gets you in the right mindset for some of the topics we're going to talk about, but hold on to the number that you checked. Don't let that number go because in about 10 minutes or so, that number is probably going to explain a lot of the pain that you've been experiencing. So thanks again. Let's move on to the next slide to get started. I got to get my poll. There we go. There we go. So let's zoom all the way out before we zoom in. So for most of our careers, at least mine, learning and development was always treated as a support function. So something that was nice to have, important, sure, but it was off to the side of business strategy. But over the last few years, that has genuinely changed, and we've seen a shift in that. And it's not just because HR got louder. We haven't complained any more so than we have in the past, and we're not necessarily any better at complaining about it, but the business itself has changed. And more importantly, the speed of business has changed. So if you look at this number on the left here, we've got core skills. So the World Economic Forum says that 39% of core skills in today's job will change by 2030. And what's incredible about that to me is this is actually a revised figure just from last year, 2025. In 2023, they ran the same study and found that 44% of skills were going to change in the workforce by 2030. So it's actionable. We're moving the needle. We're moving in the right direction. We've still got work to go. But it's dropped. That number dropped over the last couple of years because companies have started taking upskilling and skills more seriously than we have in the past. But that number only moves for your organization if your people can learn continuously. And that's where most organizations will hit a wall. So 63% of employers now say the skills gap is the single biggest barrier to transforming their business, and not capital, not technology, but skills. 59% of the workforce will need retraining by 2030. 85% of employers say that they're prioritizing upskilling in this decade. But here's the line that I want you to sit with. A lot of organizations believe they have a skills gap problem, when what they actually have is a visibility problem. They may already have more capability in the workforce than they can see, and you can't develop, deploy, or defend what you can't see. Now, nobody, and I said this with Cynthia at SHRM 26, there's no villains in this story. No one woke up, and no one in this call woke up one day and decided, hey, I'm going to start building a fragmented mess. Every single step of the way was, at the time, intentional and was a reasonable decision. So usually it plays out like this, where years ago, a company organization decided they need e-learning. So we get a new LMS, probably to track their compliance training or online courses. So good call. Then after they've launched that LMS and they're using it, they decided that in-person training needed managing. So not all LMS tools, not many of them, if any, have that capability of tracking in-person training or being a training management solution. So now we got to go back to market, find a new tool, or bury ourselves in Excel and start tracking our in-person training that way. Then HR decided we needed a coaching program for some of our leadership candidates. Now all of a sudden that's another tool that we need to add in for coaching. At some point, we decided that we wanted to start tracking certifications, professional certifications, licenses, credentials. Now that's going to be another tool or another Excel spreadsheet. Uh, and of course, performance reviews. All of a sudden, we got to have performance reviews. We got to track those. We got to do those and make sure that they're going on cadence. So now we have a performance management tool, a training management tool, a learning management system. Taken in a vacuum, every single one of those is a very reasonable yes. But if you stack enough yeses on top of each other, you end up with a tech stack that is ridiculous and completely unwieldy. And here's the result that every HR leader recognizes the second that they hear it: enormous administrative effort and surprisingly little visibility. So each tool works fine by itself, but it's the spaces in between those tools where the friction lives. And that friction is almost everywhere. And the friction isn't soft. You can measure it. So we see here 82% of enterprises say that data silos disrupt their critical workflows. The disconnects between systems cost the average employee around 12 hours per week. That's a day and a half every week, just lost to switching between different tools or reconciling data between different places by hand. Mid-sized companies waste 30 to 40% of their HR tech budget on redundant overlapping systems. And 83% of HR teams say that they simply don't have the tools or the data to verify and report with confidence. And that compounds. So nearly half of HR and L&D tech projects go over budget because usually nobody accounted for what it really takes to make all of the different systems talk to each other or to pull data from all the different systems. I'm not going to dwell on every single figure here, but the point is this: the cost of fragmentation is real, it recurs, and most of it is invisible on any budget line, which is what makes it dangerous. And to kind of illustrate that, let's take a quick look at two different case studies here. So two different industries, but identical root cause. So the first is this healthcare organization. They came to us proud of how thorough their compliance tracking was. But when we looked at it closely, it was three separate teams that were each spending nearly 2 full weeks every quarter just consolidating compliance and certification reports out of different systems that weren't communicating. So think about that. That was months of skilled human effort every year. And not 1 second of that was spent on actually upskilling or developing anyone. It was purely just data entry and data gathering, not acting on the data. The second case study is a manufacturer. So they had invested real money in developmental tools for their managers. Their managers were engaging with fewer than 20% of what was available to them, though. And it wasn't because they didn't care about the tools, but the experiences were scattered across so many different platforms and logins that nobody could find them. The capabilities that they needed existed, but they were invisible and inconvenient, which ultimately is no better than if they didn't exist at all. So that's two completely different organizations. And if you notice, neither one of them has a content problem or training problem. They don't have a budget problem. What they have is a visibility problem. Leaders couldn't see workforce readiness clearly enough to act on it. And that's the whole game. Centralizing your ecosystem is what turns all of the scattered activity into an actionable picture that you can use. So let's define the solution carefully, because centralized, as I said earlier, is one of the most misunderstood words in this industry. When I say a centralized learning ecosystem, I'm not talking about one giant mega tool that claims to do everything. Those typically don't work out too well. Sometimes they do a little bit of everything poorly. I'm sure we can all think of some big names that do that. But what we look for with a connected, centralized learning ecosystem is connection. So a set of capabilities that share the same data set, the same employee profiles, the same reporting, so they behave like one system, even if they're all doing different jobs. So training delivery, e-learning, instructor-led, virtual, compliance, work roles, certifications, license tracking, coaching, development, career planning, and analytics, just right there, all in one single source of truth. And here's the insight. The magic isn't in any one of these boxes. You already have some or most of these boxes, if you remember from the poll earlier. Um, the magic is getting them here to the middle. That's where the magic lives, where you're able to have those lines connected inside, connecting into one source of truth, to where it's instantly visible to everyone. And that's the shift. So from a pile of tools to just one connected ecosystem. When you make that shift, this is what you actually get in real terms. So you get unified visibility. Admins, managers, and learners all looking at one true picture instead of arguing about which spreadsheet is right or whose data is right. You get real-time single source data. No more reconciling exports at the end of the month or the end of the quarter. You stop entering the same person into 5 different systems because there's just one source of truth. Anytime you're duplicating multiple employee records across multiple different systems, you're just opening the door for there to be data entry errors even, but all of that has to talk together. Compliance and security get stronger because your policies and audit trails are consistent everywhere instead of patched across different tools. From an administrative standpoint, some teams even cut their manual learning by more than 30%, the administration of manual learning by 30%. That's the 12 hours a week figure from earlier, but finally moving in the right direction. And adoption climbs for an almost silly reason. People will actually use one system. Ask people to learn 5 different systems, and all of a sudden, some of those tools aren't getting used. And none of this is reinventing the wheel. None of this is like a light bulb moment, but it's just what happens when you minimize those gaps between your tools and you close them and everything's connected. And I want to spend a second on something that trips up a lot of buying decisions. So most LMS platforms were built originally for one thing, e-learning. So self-paced, individual computer-based training, online, click next to continue, et cetera. But let's stop and think about how people actually learn, right? So 62% of companies run hybrid programs. So you're doing some e-learning, you're doing some in-person or virtual coaching on the job, et cetera. Only 1 in 5 e-learning solutions tracks all of those methods well. So we're already in a limited field. This is the real test of connected ecosystem. So e-learning, but also instructor-led with registrations tracked and attendance captured instead of having to manually write it down or have a sign-up sheet. Live virtual sessions, so Zoom or Teams meetings. Like I said, coaching, the in-person on-the-spot coaching or on-the-job training, and then credentials. So licenses, certificates, the CPEs, CEUs, renewals, et cetera. All of that being able to track and renew those automatically instead of discovering it the week that they expire and having to hustle to fill the requirements. So the point isn't in the 5 boxes. It's that every modality, every training delivery method, every learner, every credential shows up in a single learning record and a single report. So that when someone asks, what has this person done and what do they still need to do? That should really just be a couple clicks. It shouldn't be a 3-day scavenger hunt to pull all the reports necessary to see what an individual learner has fully done. So let's zoom back out because centralized learning gets really powerful when it stops being an island. So think about 3 things that in most companies live in 3 different systems and 3 different conversations. So let's look at performance, learning, and compensation. So performance reviews surface when someone's strong and where they have gaps. Learning is how you close those gaps. And compensation should reflect the growth that results from closing those gaps and upskilling. In a connected system, those aren't 3 different reports. It's one continuous loop or a triangle, if you will. A review surfaces whatever skill gaps exist for a learner. So then learning closes those gaps. And that progress that they've made, that learner has made, shows up in the next review and helps inform pay decisions. And then the cycle begins again, one notch higher. What are the next upskills that we need? What's the next training that we need? When learning data itself, though, is trapped in its own silo, the loop's broken and development starts to feel random. Really, what we need is to make sure that development and employee development starts to feel intentional again, not a requirement, not something that just you do because you're told to do, but something that the learner can tell that the learning I'm being assigned, the development that I'm undertaking is intentional. There's a reason for it. There are skills I'm gaining. That's the difference between just training people and growing and developing people. And of course, in the great year 2026, you cannot do a webinar without talking about AI in some form or fashion. But we're going to talk about AI honestly here because there's a whole lot of noise with AI, and especially in learning and development. And here's the truth of it. AI is only as good as the data that's underneath it. If you have the most advanced LLM or AI model in the world, but you give it fragmented, half-empty records, the only thing you're going to get is extremely overconfident nonsense. But if you give that AI clean, connected data, something like a centralized ecosystem would produce, that's where things start to become possible. When that AI is able to rely on underlying data and get a full picture instead of just fragmented pieces, personalized learning paths could be built from someone's actual skills and their actual work role. Those skill gap analysis that is identified during the performance review cycles, that can be leveraged by AI in order to actually ascertain what skills are needed, what courses are needed, what training is needed. Basically, with this, you're able to view analytics, and analytics finally moves past just how many people have completed a course or how many people are past due on a course to how did this course change my business? And if you look at the gap over here on the right, these numbers over here, we can see a pretty interesting gap with opportunity. So 71% of learning and development professionals are already experimenting with AI. 80% say it's important to their strategy, but only 25% regularly use it. So it's that space that's in between the number of we know it matters to we're using it. That's the gap. And the organizations that close that gap first won't be the ones with the fanciest AI. They're going to be the ones that have the underlying data to support whatever AI tool they're using. So this is the slide we talked about earlier, framework for you. And one part of the webinar today that doesn't really have anything to do with Trainery as a whole, but just something to think about in terms of having that connected learning ecosystem. Whatever platform you use, whatever you decide after the webinar and moving forward, here's 6 questions to audit your current setup. So think of it like a little quick stress test on what you're currently using. So coverage. Does one employee record capture every training delivery method? E-learning, instructor-led, virtual, coaching, credentials, or does it only track some? Connectivity. Do your systems share data automatically, or is it a human reconciling exports by hand? Compliance. Can you verify licenses, certifications, CPE renewals without manual chasing? Visibility. Can a manager see one employee's full development picture in under a minute? Analytics. Can you report on outcomes and readiness or only course completions? And then total cost. How many contracts do you have for your learning tools? How many different logins do you have? Are there any overlapping tools that you're paying for? And do you know how many you have and how many you're paying for? That is a good evaluation. I'll leave it up for a second in case anyone's taking notes. We're also going to send this out after the call, so or I believe early next week. All right, so we're going to move on, and just briefly, I'm going to log into our platform, and in order to do that, I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment, and in the interest of internet bandwidth, I'm going to cut my camera off since I'll be sharing and navigating in the website, but I am still here, so give me just one moment. So here we are. I am logged into our Trainery platform. And this is just a test account, so a little forewarning. We're going through some server migration over the holiday weekend. So if we see some funky things going on as I'm going through, I really just wanted to use this as a demonstration for an integrated learning ecosystem. So we might see some funky numbers if we're using this as a playground over the next couple days and through the weekend. But this is our site. No real data on here, all test dummy data, so no, personal identification issues to worry about, no privacy concerns here. But I am logged into the platform, and we can see that this North Star Incorporated has a few different modules. So we've got our Perform Spark, which is our performance management platform. We have our compensation builder, Comp Builder, which also contains Job Builder for job descriptions, compensation, total reward statements, etc. And then our Trainery Learn section. So before I dive in, again, I want to reemphasize today is not a full-blown product demo. I'm not going to be feature dumping you on here, selling you hard on this. I just want to make the visual kind of connection so you can see what this looks like as an integrated platform. I highly encourage you, if there's enough interest there, you have questions, feel free to reach out. I'll have contact information up at the end of the session. We can set up a little customized, personalized walkthrough for you. But all of this is built off what we call Trainery Core. So when we thought about all the different tools talking into that one centralized ecosystem, Trainery Core kind of embodies that for us, where all of the employee records, all of the organization hierarchy, everything is set up once within Trainery Core, and then all of our different modules connect back to Trainery Core and talk back to it. So what do I mean by that? Let's take a look at some of the employees. Got a lot of great dashboards and things here, graphs, pretty colors. Let's just pick person and dive in a little bit where we can see now, instead of going to multiple different tools or platforms, if I wanted to see a full picture of Alex Morgan here, obviously I've got his details, job details, pay, all the HR pertinent information. But now I've also got all my performance information. What goals does Alex have and his progress towards those goals? Check-ins, what review cycles, 360 feedback, any recognition that he's received. What are his top competencies? What areas for improvement does he have? How is he working on those? We can also go down and see our benefits and compensation. We can see learning all within this one centralized platform. We can see what information or what courses, what seminars Alex has attended. We can see what instructor-led training or virtual instructor-led training he has, what learning certificates he has received, what credentials, if any, he has been assigned. Anything from the SHRM credentials to a PMP, all that can be entered and tracked within this. We can see again their learning records. We're able to see a full view of not just e-learning training, but any in-person training. And we talked earlier about the importance of having a singular audit trail. We can see, which there's nothing on here, this is a test account, but we're able to see, an audit trail of all the status and activity history for this individual. If we looked at analytics, for example, we can even see how we have different reports, and all of this is pulling from that centralized platform. Again, I'm not having to click multiple times to go into different silos or log in multiple times to multiple systems. I could just go to reports and I can see my perform reports, for example. I can see my competencies. I can see my course catalog. I can see courses by work role. I can see courses by bundles, by trainer. I can see what ILT sessions have been held. One of the core features that we did with Trainery Core was the concept that anything of learning should create a learning record. So whether I attend SHRM 26 and I want to get my credits for attending, whether I attend today's webinar, I want to get sessions for that, I can enter it into my platform here. Whether I attended a virtual instructor-led training somewhere with a third-party org, I can upload all my attendance to that. But when a learner is uploading that information, it creates a learning record so that an admin in Trainery is able to track all the different learning records that that person holds, all the different license certifications, and how all those things tie in together. All right, we can also see if we go down to Trainery Ops, and I don't think I've got anything set up on this account, doesn't look like it, but our work roles, which does directly tie into compliance, where you're able to set up the individual work roles within your organization, what the training requirements are for those, so that when it comes time to do like performance reviews, for example, you can the system will validate against what the work roles are, what courses are assigned to that work role and their progress. So you can do that with, again, the coaching sessions or performance reviews. And I want to leave obviously time for questions and answers and everything. And like I said, I don't want to dive too deep into this. So we're going to go ahead and stop this part. You should be able to see the screen again. So let's go ahead and talk in summary about the 5 things to take away. So if you forget everything else, hold on to these 5 things. So number 1, fragmentation is the default, not a decision. So if you have it, it's not a failure. It's just what happens when good choices pile up over the years. 2, the cost of fragmentation is real and measurable. There's lost hours, wasted budget, nobody in your organization trusts. Number 3, and a big one, it's usually a visibility problem, not a skill issue. You may already have more capability in your workforce than you can see because you can't see it across all the different tools. 4, centralized does not mean one giant tool necessarily. It means connected capabilities, sharing one record and one source of truth. And number 5, a big one in today's day, clean data is the AI prerequisite. So smarter analytics start with an ecosystem that actually connects and allows the AI to have the full picture of data instead of fragmented pieces of information. So the foundation isn't the boring part. The foundation is the strategy of your business. And that's where we'll go ahead and stop and open up for some brief Q&A. And Sanchita, Cynthia, please help me out if you see any of the questions coming in. I can't while sharing, or I probably could, but user error.
Sure, happy to. Okay, Karen asked, how long does implementation typically take with Trainery and how much work is required from HR and IT? Great question.
That is an excellent question. And I actually have an answer already pre-ready here that you saw pop up on my screen. But for implementation, it really depends on the scope. So our philosophy is to simplify, not create another lengthy project. So whenever we're doing onboarding or implementation with a new customer, we always start with a few kickoff calls to understand what your current learning ecosystem is, so that we can configure everything on our end just to help align with your processes, migrate any data that's needed. Training, obviously we provide training for not just the administrators, but any managers that need. Basically our goal from an implementation standpoint is to get it up and running and help you learn it quickly so that it will increase the actual adoption rate. We do what we like to call white glove service for that.
Great, here's another one for you. How do I demonstrate that a centralized learning strategy actually improves business performance?
So the shift is from moving from activity metrics to business metrics. So instead of asking how many courses people completed, start measuring whether onboarding is faster or certifications are staying current, what skill gaps are staying closed, internal mobility, what manager readiness has improved, turnover rates, also a really good one. So basically the more closely learned data aligns with performance and workforce outcomes, the easier it is to demonstrate business impact.
Oh, good. So if we can't replace everything, where do we start?
That is a good question. So I think the big key takeaway is not going into it with the mindset that you're going to replace everything. I think it's strategic and intentional to think about it and identify whatever the biggest visibility gaps are currently in your learning ecosystem. So asking managers where they lose the most time, what reporting takes the most work, or what reporting takes a lot of manual work to just kind of collaborate or to merge together different Excel sheets, finding out where development data disappears between systems. So I think a good first step is creating a common learner record. Like I mentioned, what we did with our Trainery core, having that one singular learning record where everything is connected. If you're connecting the highest value process, then you can kind of expand from there. Um, Basically, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Just got to take that first step.
So when someone joins your staff, a new employee comes on board, is there a way to record the basic training that they have had before they get there, or does it just begin with what they learn after they come on board?
Great question. So one of the things, again, I didn't go like step by step granular through the platform, but there was one section during the employee records where it is a docu-store, essentially a private storage where we have clients, customers who will upload like an employee's prior training data or whatever they want into the docu-store folders. So even though it wasn't something that was necessarily done and tracked through Trainery, they still have the record of it in that employee's private record stored within the platform. So it can still help inform decisions that way.
Wonderful. Is this something that the managers can go into, or anybody at a certain level, or how does that work? I want to see someone in a different department because I'm thinking about inviting them to our department. What is there a way that I can go in and look at their record, or do I have to go through that manager to get that?
That's a great question. So one of the things we did with Trainery was we developed customizable role-based access controls. So depending on your organization, you may have that need where some level of supervisors may need to have visibility over um, employee data that's maybe in a different department. And I'm mentioning all this because some LMS systems are very regimented and not customizable with role-based controls. Whereas, if you're a manager on, this tier down here, you're not going to see employee A over here. That's is actually a customizable feature with Trainery, so that in that example, you could just pop over and if you have the right access control or the right role, pop over and see that information. Otherwise, obviously you could go through HR to pull whatever information as needed. I hope that answers the question. That was kind of a roundabout way of answering
I
it.
think so. So HR would have access to all these records, and I
Correct.
assume the manager and the employee, of course, or
Yep.
would the employee have access?
Yep. So yes, by default, the HR and LMS admins or platform admins, visibility over everything. By default, employee, direct supervisor, their supervisor, kind of following that trail. Again, I say default because all that's customizable. So if your organization wants to empower managers to be able to do that and have visibility over the development and activity of employees in other sections, go for it. That is a customizable role.
Cool. Well, I know a lot of companies, the HR department develops a lot of programs based on the job title. So is this something the employee has any control over, or if HR goes in and sets up the whole year's training for someone, is that something that's feasible, or is it the employee who is entering most of the things in the learning system?
Great question. Yeah. So within our platform, and I'm just using us as an example. I don't know how competitors do it, but at least within our platform, HR and platform admins are able to create those individual work roles that we looked at briefly in the demo section. But those work roles are customizable in the extent that you're able to map out what training is required for, say, a ABC work role. So let's say a customer service work role. You can define within the platform that anyone that is in the work role of customer service needs to take, customer service 101, how to talk to people, and how to smile. Just three random courses.
Right.
Our platform is going to take that information and automatically enroll any employee that gets that work role into those courses. So it can ensure that from a training standpoint, it's dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's. Our platform can also be set up such that each individual employee can have the ability to look through our marketplace exchange at our entire course catalog, which now we didn't even talk content, is pushing about 19,000 plus courses with more to come very soon. And the employee can go in, check out our catalog, and request to be assigned or request to enroll in a different course if they wanted to upskill into something different.
Great. Oh, here's another question from Karen. How do I demonstrate that a centralized learning strategy actually improves business performance? Great question.
Oh, we answered that one earlier. I think that one was sent in earlier.
Oh,
Um,
okay, good. Okay, we can move to the next one.
we can
Have
move to
we,
the next one.
how long does implementation typically take with Trainery?
Also answered that one as quick as possible. I guess if you want to actually put a number on it, in most cases under a week. But again, like I hate throwing out a hard number because it depends
Right.
on each individual circumstance. But we move pretty quickly.
So you would look at the current system that the organization has, and then you would develop a plan to move it all to your system.
You got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Find out what data needs to be migrated over, if any. From an integration standpoint, identifying whatever HRIS systems or tools they're using that can be integrated. So, for example, we looked at virtual instructor-led training. So that is something I didn't talk about. Again, not a full demo today, just as an example. But we run virtual instructor-led training directly through our platform, and that can be done through currently Zoom or Teams. So, just as an example of one integration thing that we help people with, is kind of pointing them in the right direction of where to go within the platform to set up the API connection with Zoom, putting in their login credentials, or Teams. That way, when they are creating those sessions within Trainery and the learner goes to log in through Trainery, it's creating that learning record that they attended, that you got that whole audit trail of attendance. But again, just one example of integration. And those are the things that we kind of identify during those onboarding calls. Um, what integrations are we going to need? And if need be, we have our developers in house that help kind of smooth that out. But there's a lot of out of the box integrations and hooks that we've built in there.
So you have people who can help say, we want to set up an individual training plan for each of our employees. So do you have someone that could help with that process? Because that's a lengthy, detailed process.
Yeah, so one of the things that we pride ourselves on, again, and I mentioned content earlier, 19,000 plus courses with more to come. A lot of our partners actually help us with that because they are, from a content provider standpoint, truly the subject matter experts. And in the case of at least our largest content providers, that's one of the services that they offer to our clients as we're going through setup. Is basically we can send them a list of these are XYZ requirements that they want to make sure, or even if they don't even know what that is, hey, they're in this state, this type of business, what courses do you recommend? And we can create generally within 24 to 48 hours a whole list of recommended courses from a content provider based on their experience working with clients in similar industries and requirements. So yes, to answer your question.
Oh, great. So is there one specific industry that really is your forte, or does it matter?
No, we're pretty industry agnostic. We work cross industry. I mean, I think historically, manufacturing and construction is a big one for us, but that just comes from our historical records and customers from when we were not so much SaaS focused and more focused on content delivery. Now, however, I mean, everything from banking, finance to real estate to you name it, training and upskilling happens everywhere.
That's good to know. So how do we as managers verify that that employee actually did that training?
That's a good question. So, a few different ways. So, at its core, when we're talking about just pure e-learning, click next to continue individual computer-based training, that um, I mean, you're going to have to assume that they took the training, unless you're standing right over them. Unfortunately, the industry hasn't evolved to a way where they can fully tell. There are some tools to kind of help. So one of the things we track with the reporting is the time spent within a course. So if there are concerns that possibly someone is just clicking next, 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 and quizzing out of the course, if they only spent 30 seconds in the course, you kind of know that maybe they need some more attention in that specific category. Outside of that, if we're talking in-person training, so sessions and in-person training events can be scheduled and tracked within Trainery. And one of the features available to trainers, which by the way can be external trainers, it doesn't have to be someone within your organization. You can set up a role for an external trainer to log in
Oh, that's
just to
great.
verify attendance. Yeah, because that happens with a lot of industries. We're using third-party trainers to help deliver some of the training. But a trainer can log in and actually have the attendees do a signature, a digital signature or e-signature that they were in attendance. And then with the virtual instructor-led training, those records are also automatically captured. So the person is not given completion credit if, for instance, they don't join or join and leave right at the beginning or whatever. It's going to track their attendance. The facilitator is still going to be able to go in and verify at the end that everyone was there. So there's some controls in place.
That's good to know. Can we set up that plan when we have a new hire? Can we take them through all the courses, all the training that they need for their position? Can it be set up before so that by position we can go
Yep.
in and say, here's what you need to do, Q1, Q2, that sort of thing?
Yep, absolutely. That can all be done with the work roles. And there's no limit to the amount of work roles that you can have. We also have some clients that will tackle that objective through a combination of work roles and learning paths. In which, for instance, the work role might be, the actual department that they're working in, but a learning path might be an onboarding learning path that
Yeah,
automatically gets assigned to all new users when they are created or when they're imported into the system from, a connected HRIS. We
that's
just
good.
automatically assign whatever is in that, new hire onboarding learning path. So, yes, to answer your question, there's
Right.
a lot of great ways to do that, and it's all customizable. You don't have to reach out to us to do it. Any admin's able to go in and edit that, and any edits to those learning plans and work roles gets pushed directly out to the users impacted. So, good question. And I know
Okay.
we're running out of time here. I know I don't want to hold anyone up on this 4th of July weekend with what is
Yeah.
essentially Friday for all of us.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
It
Yeah.
is.
Well, this is so great, all this information that you provided to us, because it's something that's been long needed in HR. Because we've never been able to, in my career, actually track what people are doing and
Mhm.
not really know, did they actually attend this? Did they actually read that book? Whatever. You just have to take their word for it. We've never had an actual tracking system like this. So I think it's awesome. The last question is, can you come to people? Yes, put up your contact information. So if someone's interested, they can call you. Here we go. It's already there. Good. Thank you, Matt.
I anticipated that was coming. So here we go. And
Ready?
that was actually the note that I was going to close on too. So again, I especially understanding the partnership with Tennessee Sherm, making sure everyone gets the credits for attending here. I definitely didn't want anyone to leave today thinking that this was just a glorified product pitch. So hopefully you took away something that you can take back to your teams and organizations, something you can think critically on. If we had enough here or you saw enough here that warrants further conversation, or you want to have like a personalized conversation about what good looks like for your organization and if maybe Trainery could help be a solution for that, my contact information is right there on the screen. Quickest way to get in touch with me is going to be email. My number is there as well. And our website, trainery.ai.